Legend Total War here, and today we're going to be going through the patch notes for Total War Warhammer 3 for the 1.2 update. So the game's been out now for 3 months, and this is effectively the second update for Total War Warhammer 3, which is still very slow updating for the game, but I did speak to the developers, and the general consensus behind the scenes is that it's essentially all hands on deck at the moment for Immortal Empires. They're really trying to make that the best it can be when it does launch. And it seems like less effort is being put into the Realm of Chaos as a result, which I understand, and I guess I can appreciate that. I'm still very disappointed that the Realm of Chaos was so bad. And in many ways, I think that these patches are... like, there's some good stuff in here. I'm not going to be going through every little detail, because otherwise this video will go on for an hour. But yeah, there's some good stuff in here to address. I'm going to go over those ones. But yeah, there'll be a lot of things like unit stats changes and stuff like that I'm just going to glaze over, and multiplayer stuff. Just going to glaze over. Otherwise, the video will end up being like an hour long, and I think people will lose interest by then. So just going to try to focus on the key issues here. But anyway, so if you're sitting there thinking, oh, they're not addressing any of the Realm of Chaos stuff, trust me, I'm with you on that. I really think that they should, but at the same time, kind of giving up on the Realm of Chaos, and I just want Immortal Empires. Like, if them abandoning the Realm of Chaos so that we can get Immortal Empires on time happens, then I'm for it. Still disappointed about Realm of Chaos, don't get me wrong, but I just want to move on from it now. But anyway, let's go through this. So, here are some of the notes that we'll be going through. So the first Regiments of Renown pack, yep, we'll go through that. Mounts now automatically unlock for all mounted characters, no skill points necessary. Yep, that's interesting. That'll be really good for characters that have loads of mounts and loads of skills. For example, Balthazar Geld, Marathi, Malekith, those kind of characters. And a lot of the Nurgle characters as well, because that'll give them more skills to put into other things to boost their stats, because they've got such big skill trees, right? But this isn't going to help characters that have like really weak skill trees, such as the Cathay heroes, the Astromancer, and the Alchemist. They've just got really basic skill trees, and so spending 1 point into their mount just wasn't an issue before. And now they're going to end up with even more skill points left over once they've gotten everything in their skill tree. Auto-resolve fixes for campaign issues identified. Yep, that's really important, I think. I think that the auto-resolve bullcrap doesn't make the game more difficult, it makes the game more tedious. Now, if you're playing on normal difficulty or easy, you probably haven't encountered this stuff, but from hard difficulty onwards, auto-resolve gets excessively punishing, even for like really, really minor fights, to the point where you have to fight every single battle manually, or else it just cripples your campaign. Where you have a doom stack and you go up against a minor settlement with no additional forces, and you can't auto-resolve it, sort of thing. So, you know, uninteresting fight that you're forced to fight every single time. Increases player fatigue, has a high player drop-off. They should have realized that, but, you know, whatever. AI improvements to address concerns of siege battles and overbearing anti-player bias. I guess that's good. No, that's definitely good. Numerous improvements to unit responsiveness during battles. That's good. Technology updates. Yep. Long list of fixes for campaigns and based on player feedback. Okay, so let's go through this. So there's some stuff over here that we're just going to glaze over. You can read all this stuff. I'll leave a link to this in the description. So I've got early access to the patch notes, but not early access to the game. So I haven't played the actual patch itself. Alright, so let's talk about the Regiment of Renowns first. There are 7 new Regiment of Renown coming. So one for Kislev, Cathay, Ogre Kingdoms, Khorne, Tzeentch, Slaanesh, and Nurgle. There is seemingly nothing unique for the Legion of Chaos. It's not mentioned here at all how it's going to work with them, but we can speculate that it's going to be one of 3 things. Either they'll get no Regiment of Renown, they'll get all the Regiment of Renown, or they'll unlock Regiment of Renown based on their dedication. So, for example, if you dedicate to Khorne, you get access to this guy, or so on and so forth. So, we'll see what happens when the patch actually drops, which will be a few hours after this video comes out. So, let's go through the Regiment of Renown. Some of them are quite interesting, some of them are absolutely uninteresting. But yeah, let's go through them. So we've got the Dune Dragons over here, which are Celestial Dragon Guard. These ones here have the Encourage attribute. which, as far as I'm concerned, is not very interesting for a Regiment of Renown. Like, generally speaking, not all Regiment of Renown in, like, Game 1 and 2 were fantastic as well, but there are some notable examples, such as the Avalanche Mortars, which are, like, serious upgrades from the previous version, or there's, like, a unique unit entirely, like, with the flying Dark Pegasus Ravagers or whatever, with the Dark Elves, because they don't actually have a standard unit of that one. They have the ground ones, I suppose. So there are some unique ones in the game currently, but a lot of Regiment Renown are just like, take an existing unit, give it one additional stat buff, and then just ship it with a reskin. And that's fine, but those ones are the least interesting, and I think the Dune Dragons falls into that category. The Hellforged Host gives Hellforged Host is an Exalted Bloodletters of Khorne, and these guys here, as far as I can tell, they just have heavier armor than lesser bloodletters. That's it. So, assuming that their armor is like 120, I guess that's good in the early game. But in the late game, when there's way more armor piercing, I think that is going to give them absolutely no benefit whatsoever. But it's going to increase their auto-resolve power, which isn't necessarily a good thing, because it can overestimate the unit's strength. Armor is one of those things that can be very heavily weighted in auto-resolve, but actually really be quite bad in manually resolve, just because there's so much armor piercing in the game, right? So yeah, I kind of feel like this one here might actually be bad. But there is another use for Regiment of Renown, which I'll talk about once I've gone through them. So I'm not really a big fan of this one here. I don't think Khorne really needs a super powerful Regiment of Renown. They're definitely the strongest faction in the game currently. Then we've got Draz's Hearthblades, which is Sargon with Great Weapon. These guys here are blessed by the God of Fire, Daz. These ones here are fire attack. Now, that's good if you're going up against vampire counts or Nurgle, I suppose. But that would be very detrimental if you were going up against High Elves, who have naturally high fire resistance with most of their units, or a lot of their units. And same thing with the Dwarves. So fire attacks can be very much a detriment to a unit. So you got to be very careful about bringing this one in if they've got any kind of fire resistance. Like, do not bring this unit up against Imrik. It'd be a complete waste. So that one there, I think, is a bit of a potentially crap unit, but we'll see. Festering Stooges, Exalted Plague Bearers of Nurgle. So these ones here is an interesting one. These ones here essentially have the horrible regeneration, allowing them to regenerate their health and their entities over time. So that's really good. That gives them a lot more staying power than the regular variant. So this one here is an actually good Regiment of Renown that I would consider putting in my army. It's really good for lots and lots of little battles. You send it in, takes a lot of damage, and then you pull it out, let it regenerate, and then end the battle sort of thing. But it's likely that they won't be able to regenerate entities after the battle's ended, sort of thing. Then we've got the Powder Guts over here, which are Man-Eaters, Ogre Pistols. So these ones here have improved stats in their firing rate with greater range and accuracy. So this is a stat bonus that is actually valuable for them. Because greater range is always useful. Same thing with accuracy and... accuracy is useful when firing against smaller targets. When you're firing up against big blobs and stuff, missing the exact target that you're aiming for isn't that big of a deal, because as long as you hit something, it's fine. But yeah, if you're shooting at a tiny target, accuracy is important. So yeah, that's definitely a good Regiment of Renown, I think. Bringers of Beguilement, the Exalted Demonettes of Slaanesh. These have perfect vigor, and if they attack something, it has the Rampage effect. Now, Rampage is a bit of a weird one because it affects the player more than the AI, right? Because, generally speaking, when a unit is under Rampage, it essentially behaves as though what the AI was going to do. And if the AI was already in attack with something and they go Rampage, they're more or less doing whatever the AI was going to do anyway. But that's not necessarily what was going to happen with the player. So Rampage is definitely an anti-player effect. It doesn't hurt the AI that much. Perfect Vigor is definitely good. So that one there I'm sort of meh about. It's not bad, it's not amazing either. I imagine that would be very useful in multiplayer. The Blazing Squealers, Exalted Pink Horrors of Tzeentch. So these ones here, this is the most interesting in my opinion. Delivering devastating ranged fire via their warp flame projectiles, the Blazing Squeals also provide nearby friendly units with more ammunition, making them an excellent linchpin for any Tzeentch host. So, I don't know if they provide extra ammunition in an area and then once it's used up, or they regenerate ammunition. It's not exactly clear, but if it regenerates ammunition, similar to how, what's it called? Eltharian's Break Upon the Walls ability is, except his does it, army-wide. But if it's similar to that, that is very powerful for Tzeentch, especially for units like Soul Grinders, which have very high impact but low amount of ammunition. That could be really good, but we have to wait and see how that looks. One way or another, that seems like a very interesting unit. Now, what I was talking about before with Regiment of Renown, so what I usually do with them is I don't put them in my standing armies, because generally speaking, they're not that much better than regular units, but you use them in emergencies. Like, if one unit gets wiped out in your army and you're just not in a recruiting area, you just put a Regiment of Renown as a placeholder until you can recruit. Or if you're going to be attacked over the end turn and you don't have sufficient defenses, you can recruit Regiment of Renown instantly in order to help defend the settlement. And quite often they will be the deciding factor as whether or not you're winning that battle or not. So Regiment of Renown definitely useful, and you get all this stuff for free, so that's definitely good. You can't really criticize them for free stuff. There's no downside to having access to Regiment of Renown, even if the Regiment of Renown is potentially a piece of crap. It still will have some use here and there. Alright, so some stability and performance updates are coming in. That's good. Remains to be seen whether or not that's actually going to happen, because in the previous patch notes, there was stuff in there that they said that they were fixing that actually didn't get fixed. So sometimes I look at this stuff with disbelief, but at least, there are some stability fixes coming, apparently. Yeah, we already addressed the mount skills auto unlock. That's fine. I don't think it's a big deal. So battle auto resolution, right? So the outcome is now determined by the battle difficulty rather than the campaign difficulty. Yeah, so currently if you're playing a legendary difficulty campaign, but normal battle difficulty, all the auto resolves will be terrible for you, right? But after this update, if you're playing on legendary difficulty with normal battle difficulty, you'll be able to auto resolve a lot more battles. It'll be a bit more forgiving with that stuff. And I do see a lot of people do that. They play on legendary difficulty with normal battle settings. And it's fine. Play on whatever difficulty you want. Scrub. No, I'm just kidding. The difficulty scaling of auto-resolve has also been reduced on hard and higher difficulties. So yeah, being someone who plays on legendary difficulty, I can definitely attest to it being very tedious to have to fight every bloody battle manually, even when it's just not an issue at all. Like, you go up against one unit and it says Pyrrhic victory. You're going to lose 4 units up against just one troop. Having to, go through 5 minutes of load screens just to kill one troop that takes 2 seconds. So that just helps to reduce tediousness, because the auto-resolve doesn't make the game easier unless there are battles that you wouldn't be able to win manually that you can auto-resolve, which was the problem that you had in Rome 2, Attila, Thrones of Britannia, and Warhammer 1. But they removed that in subsequent titles. And to a smaller extent, Shogun 2 as well. You could just spam Ashigaru and just auto-resolve through a campaign. Once you get through the beginning, that is. You just have to be able to afford enough of them. AI behavior. So, we've increased the aggression levels of AI players, which should make them more inclined to initiate siege attacks against settlements. Now, this is going to be mixed between players, because passive players who like the AI to just sit there and besiege their settlements while they send in a relief force to come around and defeat them, they're not going to like this, right? But players like me who just want them to just make the attack, right? I know how to defend my cities. I just don't want my garrison getting starved out. This is good for me. But I imagine it just depends on your playstyle. This is going to hurt some people. It's going to benefit others. I think it's going to benefit me. So obviously I'm happy about it. But I imagine if you're somebody who likes to have the AI sit there and besiege a settlement for 8 turns, then that's maybe not the best for you. Significantly tone down the anti-player bias in the AI's target selection, especially on higher difficulties. The AI should now be less inclined to deploy forces over significant distances to engage the player if they are not perceived to be a particular threat. Yep, this is good. This will increase player fun. It will definitely reduce the difficulty of the campaign. Anti-player bias is an easy way for the programmers to make the game more challenging. But the problem is, when they turn it up too much, it becomes bloody obvious what's going on, and can sort of break the fun of the campaign when you see factions that don't border you, that have enemies between you and them, where they ignore them and come to you to attack more defended settlements just because you're the player. Also, when you see AI factions that were operating just fine, and then you become an ally with them, and then all of a sudden they just lose all their cheats and become absolutely impotent. I saw this happen in my Kislev campaign when I allied with Cathay. They were doing just fine, and then I allied with them, and then the Fire Nation attacked, also known as Tzeentch, and they just got completely steamrolled after that, completely impotent. Anyway, so yeah, there's whole lot of basically the more aligned a faction is to the player, the less effective they are. Currently at least. So unit responsiveness, any improvements to unit responsiveness is good. But one thing I noted here is that remove transition animations used by Iron Hail Gunners and Armored Cossars, which resulted in overall reduction in their damage per second. And this also increased their responsiveness when ordered to move after firing a volley. So one thing that's been criticized about Total War Warhammer right from the start is like there's no reload animations for guns. And this might indicate why. Maybe they did have reload animations in the early developments of Warhammer 1, and they removed them because it made these units really unresponsive. The funny thing is, in Total War Warhammer 1, 2, and to a smaller extent 3, ranged units have always been like super useful because they've been very responsive, they're high damage dealing, this is really, really good, right? And that might be because they don't have that reload animation that slows them down. Like if I think to Medieval 2, right? Every single unit has to reload before they shoot, and it really reduces their responsiveness. So you've got to lock onto a target and then wait a few seconds before the first volley will hit. But in Warhammer, you shoot first and then reload later, which is way more useful for missile units there. So that might be a bit telling there. Now, one thing I didn't see in here that I really wanted to see, currently, if you put a unit on guard mode, so any missile unit in the game at all, whether it be an artillery piece, long range, short range, whatever, you put a unit on guard mode and you manually tell it to fire at a specific target. When it runs out of ammunition, that unit will charge towards the enemy. I hate that. I put it on guard mode because I want it to stay still. Alright? In other Total War games, even if you don't have them on guard mode, once they've run out of ammunition, they will not march towards the enemy. I don't want my peasant archers to be charging into melee after they've run out of ammunition, because I intend to use that unit, you know, another day. You know, I don't want it to go and die. Usually, if a unit runs out of ammunition, I will withdraw it from the battlefield or just put it somewhere where it's safe because its usefulness has expired. I don't want those units to die. So doing that is extremely detrimental. I really want them to turn that off, because currently it's better to just have your units just fire at whatever target they want, because they won't charge into melee after they've run out of ammunition if you haven't given them any orders. So currently it's a bit weird where giving your units orders actually makes them perform worse. It's not how you should design a game. So manual fire, yeah, there's some changes being done there. So we've addressed that kind of stuff in the past. That's fine. Plagues. Yeah, that's fine. I'm just going to glaze over some of the stuff. So, campaign stuff for the Demon Princes. When some of the stuff here is not that interesting. Fix an issue which allowed players to continue earning glory in the monogod progression trees after dedicating to the Undivided. Funny thing about this one, I know in the previous video I said I would touch on that because the guy actually had all the summons unlocked from all of the gods. So he had the Undivided and all the monogod summons, right? And I said I would explain it, but then I just forgot to. The way to do that, like, it's not easy to do it. It takes a while. If you go down the Undivided route, you can still get a small amount of favor, or glory, I suppose, into the the tier 2 stuff of the monogods, but you have to do it through the passive gain, right? So, you know, there's buildings that provide +7 glory to Tzeentch per turn, right? Well, if you get enough of them, let's just say hypothetically you need 300 extra glory to get the summon. If your passive gain reaches 300 per turn, so that means you have to have cumulatively enough buildings to have 300 gain per turn, you will get that, and basically you will be able to re-trigger that ability every single turn, because your passive gain is +300 per turn. So it's not like it keeps on adding up every single turn, so you're not going to get the max level stuff, but you can get that summon that's right at the beginning, and that's what that guy did. He just gained enough of that passive gain across all of the monogod factions to get all of the summons, which really helped him in all of those battles. So there's some stuff in here which, yeah, that's okay. This one here is interesting. Move the 10% physical resistance granted by the Demon Prince default Demon Head and added it to his base stats. So the stronger his base stats, that's good, because while it will weaken his Demon Head, his default one, it'll strengthen all of his other heads that come after it, because he'll always retain that physical resistance. Because currently his base physical resistance is only 10%, so half that of a regular demon. This will make him less of a pincushion to missile fire, because unless it's magical weapons, which they don't come in until later on in the campaign. Because currently he's still very vulnerable to getting shot. So caravan stuff getting fixed. I don't think they've fixed the new unlimited caravan glitch, which I haven't made a video on yet. I haven't really tested it out, and I'm going to look into that one. But yeah, stay tuned to that one, because yeah, apparently it's possible for you to send like 10 caravans all at once to one target, and if they all arrive at like Drakenhof at the same time, then each one will give you a Drakenhof blade. So getting like 9 of them on turn 10 would be very useful. Anyway, let's have a look here. So the harmony icon, what I look at, yeah, okay. So there's some stuff in here. So these are some balance changes. I'm not gonna look over all this stuff here. This is just not that important. This is more multiplayer stuff. Just having a look. So technology changes. A lot of these are like, there's good stuff in here, but going through all of these things here will take forever. I'm just gonna talk about the most notable things. I don't think Cathay has anything in here that's like critical that needs to be discussed. So we'll just move on to that one. Then we're up to Khorne. Khorne's Glare, Unholy Manifestation, fixed an issue which would result in the player capital being raised if the target army was destroyed during the active period. Yeah, that's pretty funny. That never happened to me, but that was pretty funny with that one. So yeah, you could lose your capital if that essentially failed. Fixed an issue which would prevent exalted bloodthirsters who had previously recovered from being wounded from being recruited. I did actually have that happen in one of my campaigns where I didn't even notice it really, but I disbanded a exalted bloodthirster because I just didn't need it in that area, and I never got to recruit him again. He just disappeared, so that's interesting. Fixed the rare issue where upon losing the lord of a Khorne blood host army during the battle to occupy a settlement, the settlement would not actually be occupied. Yeah, so that's not actually a rare issue at all. That's actually common. If the individual that is in command of the Exalted Bloodletter unit, the first unit in the army, right? If that dude that's sitting in the middle dies, the entire blood host disappears, right? So this is not a rare issue. It's just that this issue doesn't come up that often unless you're constantly getting your lord killed in manually resolved battles. So basically, keep that dude out of combat. I don't know why they didn't make a Blood Reaper the lord of the blood host. It doesn't really make any sense, but whatever, they did what they did. Okay, then we got yeah, unit changes mostly for multiplayer. Don't worry about that too much. Technology stuff in here. I feel like the Khorne tech tree has always been really good, so there are some serious buffs in here, but nothing that I really need to like talk about. It's just buff. Then we've got Kislev. Campaign. When Boris has unlocked, the dilemma offering settlements will now take into account which settlements the player owns to prevent the display of invalid options. Right, I didn't know that was an issue. I guess if you unlocked the battle for Boris but then lost Erengrad, you could essentially still offer him Erengrad after you got him. Which, that was weird. I never tested that one, but that's just weird. I guess it's good they fixed it. Unit stats. Okay, this one here I want to talk about, right? The light war sleds and heavy war sleds. They're getting a serious nerf, because honestly, those units are kind of overpowered. Their range is being reduced to 130. Their melee weapon damage is being reduced by a fair bit, and their mass is being reduced, which kind of makes sense. They're very powerful. They just push right through units. They do tons of damage in melee. They're so versatile. Arguably one of the best units in the Kislev unit roster. I still say even with this, they're still probably going to be very good. They're just going to require a little bit more work to get the job done now, which I think is fair. Seems like all of the Kislev spells are getting a bit of a buff from reduced magic cost to increased damage, which is good because I think Kislev magic absolutely sucks. It's some of the worst laws of magic in the game. But yeah, it's good they're getting some buffs. So, no mention about the Ataman bug, where sometimes like you have an Ataman attached to a region, and their effects don't actually apply. It's very annoying. But yeah, that hasn't been addressed. There's a bunch of tech changes in here, which is good. There's some good stuff in here, so no complaints there. But yeah, like I said, I just don't want to go through everything, because otherwise the video will take freaking forever. Then we've got Nurgle over here. Yeah, not too many changes done to Nurgle's units. Oh, this is an interesting one. So all of the non-hero spellcasters, so there's the Great Unclean One, Keeper of Secrets, Lord of Change, and the Wujing War Compass, not the hero one. Instead of costing Winds of Magic, they now have bound spells with 1 use each. That is a big improvement, especially for well, for all of them, but if you want to spam an army full of like Great Unclean Ones now, they'll each have 1 use of the spell. So you'll If you had like 17 Great Unclean ones, you can have 17 free Blight Boils, 17 free Fleshy Abundance. You probably won't be able to overcast them, but still, that's way better than having to use Winds of Magic. Although I read somewhere that with the Wujing War Compass ones for the Comet of Cassandora, it's kind of like a lesser Comet of Cassandora, but that's totally fine. That might actually make the Wujing War Compass not completely useless, which it currently is. Anyway, technologies in here. It seems like the Nurgle tech isn't really improving by that much. They're gravitating it more towards hitting 7% of stuff, which is Nurgle's number, which is great and everything, but I'm not seeing like big improvements in their tech tree. Like Khorne's tech tree is really good. Ogre's tech tree, really, really good. Nurgle's tech tree has always been crap, so they need some massive buffs. They're getting some new additional effects added, but nothing in here that seemed like really important, apart from maybe Ravenous Tadpoles, bonus versus large, because currently there's like no Nurgle units that have bonus versus large, but you know, they're gonna get them now. Okay, so Ogres, I don't think there's too many changes coming into. Oh look, Giants now enjoys the added benefit of 15% missile resistance. Do you know what the funny thing is? Even with that, I'd still put it in D tier. Giving them some missile resistance is good, but they're just too slow. They're just a terrible unit. But at least now they're not going to be 100% pin cushions. So that's good for Giants. Good for you. So, abilities. So Offers to the Great Maw can now be performed at sea. That's cool. Over Tyrant's Crown is buffed a little bit. Technologies. Their tech tree was already good, but it looks like they're getting a bit more of a buff. Seems like they're going to compensate the Gorges a little bit because they got heavily nerfed in the previous patch, and now in their tech tree they're getting a bit of a buff. But not as much as what they were before. Range for Iron Blast is good. Yeah, there's some good stuff in there for sure. Slaanesh. Okay. Slaanesh armies can no longer summon Disciple armies after pressing the Enter button. That's fine, whatever. I never did that. Don't think you ever really need to, but that's fine. Veils of Creatures Landmark apparently wasn't working for the recruit rank for Demonettes. I didn't know about that one, but good. This one here. Factions vassalized in Nakari now properly dispel the fog of war, and vassalizing an enemy faction of an ally will no longer instigate a war with your ally. That's really good. So in one of my campaigns, I was allied to Kairos and one of the minor Tzeentch factions as a defensive ally. And then I awoken a Kislev faction and made it a vassal. And in doing so, Kairos and that other faction immediately declared war on me automatically. Because I did that. It didn't derail my campaign, but it was unexpected and annoying. It made it not worth getting the vassal in the first place. So that is a big fix to Slaanesh's campaign. But you also need to make, and they haven't mentioned it here, but they did mention it to me privately, that they're going to make it so that you can't declare war on vassals directly, which is one of the big problems with Nakai, right? I've mentioned this many, many times before. So Nakai and Nakari, where if you have friendly factions who hate your vassals, or even just mildly dislike your vassal, they'll not even consider their relationship with you and just declare war on your vassal, but have no diplomatic repercussion for it. And you, of course, having to side with your vassal is just annoying in this situation here. So they need to make it that if they want to declare war on the vassal, they have to declare war on the overlord, and therefore consider the treaties that are currently existing. So hopefully that is just going to be implemented, but just not mentioned here. So what else have we got? So Keeper of Secrets thing is there with one ability usage. They're buffing the Law of Slaanesh a little bit, which is good because it's currently crap. Yeah, some changes here to the tech tree, but nothing spectacular. One thing I really wanted to see here was replenishment rate bonus, and I know that they said that's coming in 1.3, but if we have a look down here in Tzeentch in the tech tree, casualty replenishment rate plus 5%. So they're actually getting some casualty replenishment rate. Now 5% is not much, but that is better than nothing, because currently both Slaanesh and Tzeentch have terrible replenishment rates. Now it just seems like it's going to be Slaanesh with the terrible replenishment rate. So most players, when you start to go into yellow and red areas, you want to make sure you've already researched this. But yeah, I think that the Slaanesh tech tree is really weak, and this doesn't seem to be any massive improvements to it. Like, there are improvements, but compared to the other ones, I feel like even Khorne got bigger buffs than this. And that one's the one that needed the most. Then we've got Tzeentch, where not too many... Oh, this one here. Grimoires can no longer be generated by reducing the cost of changing the ways action to a negative value. This one's funny. I never did this in one of my campaigns, but I've known of it for a while, where there's an item that you can get by fighting and winning a battle in allied territory, and you can equip it to any character that reduces the cost of the changing of the ways for breaking an alliance by 30%. If you get 4 or more of these items, you can actually get it into such a negative degree that you'll actually gain grimoires back. And because the grimoire cost of breaking alliance is so high, if you had, for example, say 10 of these items, you could gain thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of grimoires by causing the breaking of an alliance of 2 major factions. The bigger the alliance that you break up, the more grimoires that you'll actually get back. However, you had to actually have the required amount of grimoires in your pool without considering the cost difference in order to do it. So it would say things like, this will cost you 5,000, but then you'd end up getting 10,000 back, sort of thing. But you had to have the initial 5,000. Alright, so, another thing I saw, Thematic Locust has entirely new behavior, Winds of Magic Power Reserve Capacity plus 20. So that's good to see. I definitely want this expanded upon in the game so that we can do more stuff like this, because this is fun factor right here. But if this is the only ability in the game that does it, that's a bit lame. This is what Knowledgeable used to do, essentially, except it was like plus 5. Hopefully they changed the trait Knowledgeable to go back to what it was, because it was fun. Now it's so terrible I just never recruited. Knowledgeable is awful now in Warhammer 3. Now, I'm not saying it has to be back to plus 5. Make it plus 1. Just have it do something interesting. But yeah, that kind of stuff, if you can actually increase your capacity beyond 100 is good, because 100 just isn't that much. It's a downgrade of Warhammer 2. Like, there's factions... There's many situations in Warhammer 2 where at the very beginning of the campaign, you can have more than 100 Winds of Magic Reserve. And the maximum, turn 400, you're still stuck with the maximum of 100. At least you've got unlimited Winds of Magic to compensate for it, which we didn't have in Warhammer 2. Alright, so that goes with all the factions. Now we go with the various campaign effects. So there's a lot of minor ones in here. So fiction issue where certain legendary lords would lose their immortality when confederated. I didn't know that was in Warhammer 3. Don't know which characters it affected, but I know it's in Warhammer 2 with Throt. If you confederate him as any other Skaven, he's not immortal. I don't know if they ever fixed that. Fix an issue where skill... Yeah, okay. A lot of the stuff here is not that big of a deal. Heroes who repeatedly target their own race will no longer receive hates race of their own race. That's funny, but not a big deal. Fix an issue where devotion will not always update after exiting a pre-battle screen. Okay, that's fine. Fix an issue where the Erengrad port settlement will not transfer ownership properly when occupied. Yeah, I never had that problem. Fix an issue where the settlements would lose their walls if occupied by ogres or Norsca, resulting in minor summit battles instead of walled sieges. But aren't they supposed to not have walls? Maybe it's if they occupy it, it loses their walls, and then if you reoccupy it, they permanently lose their walls. Funny thing is, though, that would be beneficial to any city, because walls are detrimental in Warhammer 3. I know it sounds stupid, and it is. That's because it is, generally speaking, easier to defend a minor settlement than a walled settlement because of the different changes to it. So that's a bug that isn't actually all that bad, but they're getting rid of it anyway. Let's see here. Some of these things are pretty damn minor. This one here. Fix an issue which will prevent the player from traversing towards the Forge of Soul Rift if they'd already entered a realm during that phase of rifts. Yeah, that one was bullcrap, and that ended so many people's campaigns. Didn't end any of my campaigns. But yeah, that is complete and utter rubbish, that one. I'm glad it's getting fixed, but that one's crap. If a player initiates a battle on top of a portal in the Slaanesh realm, they will now be able to move in and out of the portal. Yeah, because you can get stuck in the realm of Slaanesh. That's really annoying. I haven't personally been stuck, but I have seen it happen. Reduce the likelihood of getting stuck in between the edges of a floating island and a teleport locus in the realm of Tzeentch. Just delete the realm of Tzeentch. Okay, it has absolutely no redeeming qualities. And this is coming from somebody who aligns with Tzeentch the most. This realm is so badly designed, you just need to scrap it and return to the drawing board with that one. It's just fucked. It's just a terrible realm. Not fun at all. Fixed an issue where the AI players will constantly replace lords when under siege, leading to prolonged besieging times. That's hilarious. I never had that problem because I always assaulted straight away. But yeah, that would definitely not benefit passive players that starved out garrisons. That's actually really funny. But makes sense. Fix an issue which, I mean, there's nothing stopping you as the player from doing that as well. If one of your armies is besieged, you keep switching out your lords. Anyway, fix an issue which we could use to generate infinite action points, allowing for infinite movement during a single turn. I think that's the... They didn't mention it specifically, but I think that's the go into ambush, come out of ambush stance bug. Because I think they already addressed... Or maybe it's the one where if you recruit in a region that you own, you get a little bit of movement back. That might be the one they're fixing. I'm not sure which one, but they're fixing one of the infinite movement bugs. Then there's a few more changes here that don't seem to be that big of a deal. General sort of... okay, here we go. Fix an issue which allowed AI players to ignore deployable cooldowns when defending in battles. Yeah, that one was horseshit. Glad that's getting fixed. Because, yeah, that was just annoying. They were just straight up cheating. Fix an issue where tower projectiles would diminish in strength despite having upgraded the main settlement. Yeah, that was just hilarious, but also annoying. Where tier 5 towers were shooting tier 1 projectiles, whereas tier 3 towers were shooting tier 5 projectiles or whatever. It's just it was just a database issue. Unbreakable units will no longer rout when all victory points are captured. Yep, makes sense. Updated deployment zones and reinforcement logic lines in subterranean battles. Yeah, I don't think I really fought that many subterranean battles in Warhammer 3 so far, so I don't think I had any issues. I haven't seen the issue for that one. Fix an issue which prevented artillery from being recrewed after the machine model was destroyed. Yeah, so one model would get destroyed and then you couldn't recrew it. You'd lose all your artillery ammunition. That was a little bit annoying, but usually if that happened, that meant that the enemy was like pounding your backline anyway. Fix an issue which prevented Kugath, Plaguefather, and Soul Grinder units from attacking walls. You really shouldn't be using Kugath and Soul Grinders of Nurgle to attack walls because I think they do next to no damage to it, but you know, that is something. And then the rest of this is multiplayer. Okay, so that's pretty much everything. Gone through everything that I wanted to go through there. Obviously, there might be some things in there that I glazed over that maybe you're interested in. I'll leave a link in the description so that you can go and check it out. It won't be available immediately because I'll be able to release this video before the website goes up, but I'll keep an eye on it and release the link in the description within a few minutes of this video going live. But yeah, my overall thoughts are that this is definitely a step in the right direction, right? There's some good things in here. Regiment of Renown, some free content, it's good. It's good. Do I think this is going to bring all the players back to Warhammer 3 or Total War Warhammer in general? No. I think it's mostly going to fall flat because the core issues of the game aren't being addressed. Which I understand. I've spoken to the developers a little bit. The mindset is the Realms of Chaos is not the priority. The priority right now is Immortal Empires. All hands are on deck to make sure that Immortal Empires, when it goes into its open beta, that it goes as smoothly as possible and everybody's happy with it, right? The Warhammer 3 that we got was just a failure, basically. And these patches here that they're doing, these are, I think, cheap, easy to implement patches to make small improvements that will affect Immortal Empires as well. But it doesn't seem like they're making overhaul changes to the core problems of the game, which for me primarily is the Realm of Chaos. I mean, you can just use mods now to get rid of the Realm of Chaos entirely, but if that was the case, then the player numbers would be up significantly and just using that mod, but that's not the case. It's not enough. There's lots of other issues in the game as well, but for me, that's my primary issue. I still enjoy Warhammer 3, don't get me wrong, but there are still a lot of issues with it, and I don't think that this is suddenly going to bring the player numbers back to what it was with Warhammer 2. We're not there yet. We've still got a little while to go, but I will be starting a new campaign as Slaanesh. I really want to see how these new vassal changes affect Slaanesh's campaign. So if you're interested in watching a Nakari campaign, feel free to join in. I enjoyed the last Nakari campaign that I did, up until my vassals started getting declared war on by other allies. That's where I sort of was like, I'm losing interest now. Which is usually what happens with people's campaigns. You're having fun until like bullshit gets thrown at you, and it's like, oh well, that just takes the fun away. That's usually what happens. Anyway, I hope to see you at the live stream. Appreciate you guys. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below or in the live stream. We can address them there. And I look forward to talking to you there. Appreciate you guys. Hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time, fuckers.